No, I watched too many episodes of Yellowstone. No, all no, all joking aside, like, I was actually born into it. So, our ranch was homesteaded in 1888. I'm the 5th generation that came back. So when people ask, "Well, why did you come back to the ranch?" And I said, "Well, guilt got me here, but then passion kept me to stay." And so, yeah, I had kinda had aspirations at one time to go to law school and be a lobbyist, and then the week before Dead Week, my senior year, came my mom came down. We had some conversations about coming home for the summer, and that's been 20 some years ago. So yeah, we're just moving and shaking now, and it's a great life. Sometimes some years it's a good business too, but for the most part, it's a really neat life.
Well, welcome everybody back to the Sean Trey Show. I've got a really awesome guest with me today. Would you like to tell people who you are and what you do?
Sure, I'm Jaclyn Wilson. I'm from the Sandhills of Western Nebraska, and I am a beef cattle rancher.
How did you go down that path? Was this something that you chose? Was this like family pulled you down that path? And tell me about that.
No, I watched too many episodes of Yellowstone. No, all joking
There you
aside, like
go.
I was actually born into it. So, our ranch was homesteaded in 1888. I'm the 5th generation that came back. So when people ask, "Well, why did you come back to the ranch?" And I said, "Well, guilt got me here, but then passion kept me to stay." And so, yeah, I had kinda had aspirations at one time to go to law school and be a lobbyist, and then the week before Dead Week, my senior year, came my mom came down. We had some conversations about coming home for the summer, and that's been 20 some years ago. So yeah, we're just moving and shaking now, and it's a great life. Sometimes some years it's a good business too, but for the most part, it's a really neat life.
That's interesting. Now, I wanted to ask you this because what, for people that don't know, you know, what do you wish that they understood, or what is, cattle farming all about? Like, I mean, because yeah, like you said, like right now, people are like, it's all about, Yellowstone. Like that's what it's like. And I mean, I'm sure it's not, but maybe it is. Talk to me about what it's like to be a cattle farmer.
Well, I would like to know. First off, I'd like to say if it is or isn't, because I don't really know. I can honestly say I've only ever watched one episode, and that was it, of Yellowstone. But I know like the cowboy craze and stuff has taken a lot more. It's got a lot of momentum right now, and I know a lot
Yeah.
more people are. I think COVID kind of helped with that too. A lot of people wanted to kind of lead a simpler life, and so they started to
Yeah.
look more at these ranching or farming, which in my mind, that's like the least simplest life you could lead. So I don't know what they were thinking there. But yeah, I think the general consensus is on that is we're pretty heavy stereotyped. Ranchers, I think you kind of think back to the old artwork where you've got the husband and wife and the pitchfork in between, and they're both got these like scowls on their face, and kind of live through those connotations of being a hick or being a little backwoods or slow or everything. But I always say this, I can go anywhere in the world and I can fit in, but it's really
Yeah.
difficult for people to come out to the ranch or a farm too, if that's the case, and try to do what we do on a daily basis. And I've seen this time and time again in my experiences and the people that come out to visit the ranch. So I think the whole thing that I would really like people to know behind it is I'm very fortunate because I have a purpose. And my purpose is raising my animals the best that I can every single day so that they can fulfill their purpose. And their purpose is feeding the world. And so I do everything I can to make that purpose happen, whether it's improving my environment. I work with families, so there's always, that challenge and struggle sometimes, and also the great benefits of that too. And then also working with other people. And then of course you're in an industry where cattle kill more people than sharks do. So I mean there's so many dangers and challenges too. And then you're a price taker, you're not a price maker, and you throw in these weird economics and mother nature and all the stressors. And it's an interesting I mean it's just a great lifestyle, but also a very fascinating one too.
It's so interesting too because I like how you said that. Your cattle feed the world, and that's such a beautiful way to look at it. And I mean, I have another podcast. I grew up in the Napa Valley, and one of the things that fascinated me, my family's not an ag family. but I was always fascinated growing up in an agricultural region, like where people are like. So I have some bottles here that were bottles that I was just like talking to someone about last night, not even on my podcast, but so if I take this bottle and I think about this, right? It's just a simple bottle of wine, but it's not. If you
It's
think
not.
it's not, like, if you think about this, so like they planted the grapes, and then let's say 3, 4 years before those
Mhm,
plants are actually in the place where they can actually be producing fruit. And is it the fruit yet that we're really looking for? It might be that that's just getting warmed up. So let's say 5 years before it's really where it needs to be. And that's not just, well, let's just leave it be for 5 years. That's 5 years of people there, like working the soil, making sure that it has the right sunlight, the right water, the right temperatures, going out in that field, checking the plant, making sure there's no any type of parasite or bugs that are going to cause damage to the plant. And then the process of making wine begins. So, like, you start growing
mhm.
the grapes before you even get there. And then all the people that are involved in farming and harvesting. And then we get into the actual like winemaking, and there's a bunch of people there. So whenever you look at something, whether it be anything in ag, whether it be a glass of wine or a beautiful steak, there's a lot that has happened to get that to your plate, to your ability to consume it. And I feel like we in the West, I don't see this as much as where I live right now in Vietnam. Like, I go to the market and I see the food, like I see it, like
Mhm.
it's still right there. But in the West, our food is we're very separate from the food at times, And I think that that's something that could be. I don't know if it could be better. Like, people could understand more about people and time and life went into this. Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely, 100%. And, and like I mentioned before we started this, I was just in Vietnam here just a month and a half ago. And you see that firsthand. You see people that are more connected to agriculture, especially in some of those Asian countries. And it's still because they still might have parents or grandparents
That are
that
still
are
doing it.
farming and raising. They have a couple cows, a goat, and a couple chickens, but they're still involved in ag. Whereas in the U.S., we're becoming further and further removed from those homestead days of the late 1800s, and
Yeah.
I think there is that divide. When I had a cousin, I think it was, and I remember she got a answer wrong on a test because the question was, "Where does your milk come from?" And she
Mm.
put a cow. And the correct answer was no, the store.
Oh,
And I
wow.
think, it's just amazing to me. But exactly what you go with wine, and it's not a whole lot different in wine in livestock production. I mean, I put a steak on a plate. That animal took almost 2 years to get to that point, and it's a combination of me understanding science, engineering, mechanical, plumbing, electricity. I mean, every single component, veterinary skills, soil scientist in an own way, a nutritionist. I mean, all of these things in order to get that animal to that point where it's a pleasant eating experience for the consumer. And I don't think people realize there's all those aspects involved in it. And we're so far removed from a demographic. And what I mean by that is it's an hour for me to go get a gallon of milk. I don't have a milk cow. I don't want a milk cow. But if I want a gallon of milk from the store, I have to travel an hour one way. And so, we have that separation still. And that's, I think, also why it's so rewarding to be able to share like our ranch and our operation with people from around the world, because it kind of opens their eyes to there's still this whole entire group of individuals out there that are living this. And I mean, this is my full-time job. So if I goop this up, I don't know what I'm going to do.
It's a couple things that are really interesting. I think that like um it's that story about where did the milk come from, like the store versus a cow. That's exactly what I'm talking about. And that's
Mhm,
interesting to me because I think one of the things that is that disconnect is fascinating to me because I grew up with really my grandpa and his family were just salt of the earth people. And I didn't know much about my grandparents until my mom got older, and she's like, "Yeah, your great grandma and family were cattle ranchers. They had cattle all through Arizona." And I was like, first of all, I didn't know that they had cattle in Arizona, but I guess they were like big, cattle farmers down in Arizona. And um, when I asked my mom what it was like growing up around their ranch, she would tell me just some of the stories, and it was nothing was super. It was just the day to day of people showing up. Like, that was who they were. It was the day to day. You would think that there were these fascinating stories, but it was the day to day of showing up and caring for the animals and making sure everything flowed. And I am fascinated by, these hoof, like, trimming videos on social media where, like, I did not know there was this much that went into caring for cattle hooves, and it was wild that, the level of things that people do, and, like, you'll have this guy who will show up to do a farm, and he'll be like, "All right, we're gonna do all these cattle on this ranch," and
Mhm.
it's like 4 days, It's 4 days, to bring all the cattle through, and to look at what goes into that, and I was thinking about that, um, my question is, like, then what does a normal day look like? Because if it's a lot of showing up and it's a lot of things that people don't realize, like, what does your day entail?
Yeah, I wish I knew because every day is so different. And that's also one of the struggles too, because I always I'm kind of like I'm a massive book reader, that's my go-to at night. I don't have Wi-Fi or cell service at my house, so when I go home, which is usually about 8, 9 at night, I disconnect. And
That's
so
awesome.
I always pull out a book, and you read about things like, especially all these self-help books nowadays, that you need to set a pattern. If you want low stress in your life, you have to wake up at this time and do this and eat 3 to 5 meals a day and go to bed at this time and exercise this much. And I look at that and I go, huh. Yeah,
Yeah,
I don't.
right?
So I mean, I think that's the great part is in ranching things are cyclical. It's
Yeah.
you're going through the same process every year in terms of, that in May and June you're going to have calves being born. July, starting about the beginning of July to September, you're going to be in the hayfield. You're going to be fencing. You're going to be doing summer projects. You're going to AI at this time or artificially inseminate, not the Chat GPT type. And I think you've got those cyclical things, but then when you start looking at it from a day-to-day process, like when I woke up this morning, I really didn't have a clue what I was going to do today. I had a couple pressing things I needed to do. I was actually supposed to be in Africa, on my way to Africa today,
That's
but
awesome.
because of a couple of things on a ranch, I had to cancel that. But I still have to put my presentation together that I'm going to present in the middle of Friday night. So I worked on that some today. Today was more of an office day for me. I worked on some phone calls, had a meeting with attorneys. I worked on a contract for some cattle I have in Canada because I also have cattle in Uruguay, working on a new business venture there. We have a new guest facility on the ranch, so I was trying to finish some of that stuff up in there. Tomorrow be a totally different day. Tomorrow I'll be out with the cattle most of the day, or I'll be with the equipment, starting to think about getting it ready for hay season. And there's not. I wish there was a set day, and it's there's not. And I think that's also what makes it so enjoyable. Like my schedule usually, this time of the year, I'm usually up in the yard, our main yard, by about 6, usually before, a little before 6. Sometimes I'll stop for lunch, sometimes I won't. For the most part, I go home about 7, 8, 9 o'clock at night, and then start again the next day. So
Sounds like being a parent, like, on a lot of levels, like, I mean, when people ask me what it's like to be a dad, I'm just like, every single day it's something new, and every single day I'm trying to figure it out what that new thing is gonna be, how I get there and how I don't have it be a degree of chaos that is something that is going out of control, And but the thing is I wouldn't want anything else. As a dad,
yeah.
it's the thing that I love the most, and I wanna ask you this because there is this, like, romanticizing that agricultural life is an easy life. Like, my wife the other day Like, this is the thing, my wife the other day was like, she's a professional entertainer, and she has this, like, challenges of the fluctuation in her career. Sometimes things
Mm.
are booking, things are not, and she's like, "I just wish I could move to the countryside and be a farmer," and I was like, "You do understand that that is a very challenging life, like, that is not all, like, that you think," and she's like, "Yeah, you're right," but I wanted to ask you this, like, why did you know, you had this choice where your mom came and, talked to you at college, but why did you choose ranching when there might have been an easier way, you know?
In my case, there was a lot of generational pressure. I
Yeah.
mean, there's such a family environment, and there's so much tradition and legacy and pride all wrapped up into the ranching industry in general. And it was always something growing up. I mean, I went to the quintessential one room schoolhouse. I mean,
Yeah.
I boarded in high school because I lived so far away from the ranch. And well, the ranch and the school were quite a ways apart, about hour 15 minutes away. And then so it was always one of those things. I remember bartering. I think it was for prom. I could stay out later on prom night if I agreed to like miss senior skip day and instead go home and work cattle or something like that. I mean, there was always some bartering involved around the ranch. But I think the thing was is growing up, you always realized that the ranch was the priority.
Mm.
Because if you didn't focus on any of those components, the cattle, the environment, or the people that were involved, everything else started to kind of domino effect. And so it was always, and I think you grew up learning those lessons that like if you took one shortcut here, this could really cause some serious has some serious consequences, whether it was be like if there was a sick calf and I said, mm, I'm kind of busy right now. I have a hot date tonight.
Mm.
Maybe I'll doctor him tomorrow. Go out tomorrow. He's dead. It's those consequences that you have. And so, when it was kind of always of the understanding that I would come back to the ranch someday. I just didn't know at that time that it was going to be as quick as that. And I mean, and then it also the great part is I have an amazing business partner and my dad. We're partners in both the ranch and also our beef business. And he's so understanding of letting me be passionate about the things that I'm passionate about. I love to advocate. I love policy work. I love to travel. And so I work my butt off. So, however many days a week, most of the time that's 7 days a week. So I can take a week off and go speak in Africa, about like women in agriculture or something. And
Yeah.
so there's a lot of people in the industry that don't take advantages of those opportunities, and I think that also hampers some of the mindset too of people. You know what it's like. You live in another country at times.
Mhm.
You're a different person because of that experience, and those experiences are important, and they've changed our operation and our mindset too.
This is so interesting too, because I think that one of the things that I've seen is that, um, when you operate in a space where people kind of assume things about what you do, it can go all types of directions, you know? And, um and I think that one of the things that I have questions about, is that, with being a rancher, uh, you are always having to make so many decisions. Like, I run a business with 15 people, you know, and every day I'm having to juggle a lot of different little things because I have different personalities. I have different people's needs. I have different ups and downs of and as a farmer, you are dealing with a lot of different, or a rancher, sorry, you are dealing with a lot of different entities. Each cattle has its own personality. It's got its own side, things, ups and downs. Are there a lot of things you have to juggle, or are the systems in place at the ranch enough to keep things running well? Or is there a lot to juggle still, or is it a combination of the two?
Well, I think that there will always be stuff to juggle because it always is a moving process. I mean, we're
Yeah.
not. It's not like we're processing blueberries. Where you
Right.
you you have something that just sits there and doesn't give any feedback.
Hmm.
Cattle unfortunately can be jerks sometimes. There's a lot of feedback whether you want it or not. But I think besides that too, we've really And that's where the travel aspect has come into it, and, like, having those opportunities to speak and whatnot and travel on behalf of the industry overseas and being gone for periods of time is that's made us better operators here because we've really had to work on making sure those procedures and processes are in place so that that way I can leave. I'm responsible for our cow herd, and I'm responsible for all the decisions concerning our cow herd, and I'm also 100% hands on. I mean, I'm the first person that touches that animal, and I'm usually the last person too. And so it's one of those things like, if I'm not teaching or educating others to or have those processes in place or trying to continue to be as efficient and as we possibly can be, our business would not continue to be as successful. And so it is running a business. And I think that's what people sometimes forget is
Yeah.
that agriculture is a business, and it's a big business, and it's still 90 some percent family owned. And I mean, and
Hmm.
so you also have those struggles too. My dad and I, we see each other almost every single day. And if we don't see each other in person, we're talking on the phone to each other, so the relationships are incredibly important. And it's also because you're so challenged with where you live. I mean, there's four of us out here that work full time. And if we don't get along, it's really going to upset the apple cart.
Right? That's I live in a multi-generational household, and it feels like it's a little island at times. And yeah, if you don't get along, there's not much change that's gonna happen, but I can identify with that. But you said something there about traveling the world, and I wanted to ask you because 'cause you've traveled all over the world studying agriculture, and what's something you've learned that completely changed how you see your own ranch?
I think the biggest thing that I've learned is that there's so many misconceptions out there. I mean, I remember traveling to since you're in Asia, I remember traveling to China for my first time. Oh, it's probably about 2015 or so, and I remember doing this bike ride the last day I was there, and I was there as part of a 150th birthday celebration for Cargill, which is a large privately owned company.
Mhm.
And I was driving down the street behind one of the owners of Cargill, and I saw these blue tarps laying on the street with meat on them. And it's like an 80, 90-degree day. I mean, it's just flies are buzzing, and here's this meat. You've seen the wet markets. You know the same vision I'm
I know
talking about.
exactly what you're talking about. Yeah.
And then I come back or talking to the people there, and they're talking about how they don't want to buy US beef because our product is so unsafe and unsanitary. And I'm like, you're selling meat off a tarp,
Yep.
and I think that was one
Right.
of the things that shocked me was that misconception of US agriculture in general that people had. They thought we're all factory farmers. We live on wide open grasslands out here. Our cattle spend the majority of their life on grass. And it's like, huh? This isn't true at all. And this is people like from the European Union that were telling me this, and yet their cattle spend winters indoors. And I'm just like, this isn't lining up. So I think that's one of the main reasons, I've got so invested with the travel aspect of it is just really sharing our story with other producers overseas. But at the same time, making sure that they always know that they're welcome to visit. And a lot of them have taken us up on it too. And I think they're kind of shocked in return when they get out here and it's nothing like the perceptions that they had.
I think that's one of the important things in life is that so often we get people that get into those places where they assume things, and I think those assumptions can lead to all types of problems. Because, if I said that I understood um, this thing really well. Let's pick. There's a guy up the street who makes amazing guitars. He makes amazing guitars, and I once went in there asking if he could. I wanted to get this kit guitar, right? Because I'd always wanted to make my own Martin, and Martin Guitar sells this kit that you
Hmm.
can then build your own guitar. And I went in there. I was like, "Can you help me build this? Because I would really like this." And he pulled out one of his guitars. And he's like, I promise you that the wood on this is going to be equal to that kit that you're buying, and it's probably going to be better. And he's like, I make good quality stuff. And I was just like, oh, I just offended you really badly. But it was like, um, my bad. But the reality is like what he was saying is that you don't understand what I'm doing. You don't
Mhm.
understand how I'm doing it. And it was interesting because I had to take a step back and then I said, so show me. I want to learn. Like, I am here to learn. Talk to me. And he showed me, and he showed me the way he did things and the care that he put into each piece, and I was blown away by it, you know? And but it took me having an open mind to something. And right now, one of the problems is that a lot of people don't have open minds. A lot of people have way too much judgment and preconceived ideas about, let's just say, everything, you know?
Oh, they're so spot on. Yeah. And going with that story, it's funny that you talked about it in that way because I cannot tell you how many times, because I'm not married, no kids. And I was married at one time and we won't talk about that. But I mean now, when you're out of it, like I just don't even bother anymore. But there was a period of time, when you were talking to other people and they would be like, "Oh, I would love to come help you out. Why don't I just come out and help you?" And I'll be and I would almost be offended by it, and then at the same time, I would almost offend them with my response, and I'd be like, "Well, I don't go to your place of work. I mean, if you're a banker, I'm not gonna come into your office and start giving out loans. So what makes you think that you could come out to the ranch and do what I do?"
Yep.
But if you wanna learn and you wanna shadow me and follow me around, I can teach you, but you don't just come in thinking that you're gonna know how to ranch if you've never set foot on an operation. So yeah,
Right.
it's you're spot on with that for sure.
Right. Yeah. Like, that's the funny thing. Like, there was this great video clip of, where was it? It was this, they talked about how so many people think that they can do something that they cannot do. And one of the things, like, that there was the example was being a commercial pilot.
Oh my
Um,
god.
and right, they're like, there's always like the video, like, the old movies in like the 80s or something, and they're like walking there. The pilot is incapacitated. Can anyone fly the plane? Someone's like, I can fly the plane. I got to go on an Airbus simulator recently with my daughter. They have a flight school here, and they let you rent time on their sim. And the big like I'm actually in a real plane type of a vibe, and we went in there, and I turned to my wife immediately. I was like, "Oh yeah, there's no way that I can figure this out. Like, if something something were to happen to the pilot, we're in bad shape right now because like this is complicated. This is really complicated." And there was the cool things are with the new Airbus, like that thing will land itself. Like like if there's an emergency, it will just do it. You like it's wildly automated, but the funny thing is there was this assumption that I was like, "Yeah, I could go in and do
Oh
that."
yeah, piece
I
of cake. Yeah,
piece of
piece of
cake.
cake.
Yeah, it's really easy, you know? But it's not, and I think that that's one of the things that we have to be open to seeing what people experience. I remember
Yeah.
there was a job that, this guy was here living overseas. Sometimes I see some really crazy stuff, and we have the sewage line for the city that runs under the front of our house, and all of the houses it's like in front, and the access point was in our like patio area. And I don't have a better word for it than that. It's not a patio, it's just
Mhm.
like the front of the house. The guy came in, and they're like, "Oh, the sewage is backed up." And it's like, "Okay, cool, what's going to happen? Do we have like a big machine that goes in there, routes thing out?" And the dude starts taking off his work clothes and puts on a jumpsuit. That's just like, oh
Yeah,
man,
it sounds
this
like
is
you know.
going. This is going a direction I don't think. And it wasn't like safety gear. It was just like he started stripping down into like coveralls, and he's like, he gets in
Oh
there and he's like a
no.
big bucket, and they just start shoveling out like dirt and stuff because it wasn't. It was stuff
I
like
don't think
sand
it
and
was dirt.
there was it was like
I
because the
don't think
house
it
it
was
was
dirt.
it was solidified shit is what it really was.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, because the house next door had been doing construction, and so they got like there was a bunch of sand that kept going down because they were making concrete right there on the
Mhm.
street, and so it merged with the poop and it created this massive thing. It was wild. But yeah, he's in there shoveling it
Hey,
out. And I was just like, wow, wow, that's way different than I thought. And it was what was interesting is they turned to me and they're like, is this how you guys do it back home? And I was just like, no,
Mike Rowe does. I mean, yeah, dirty jobs. I'm sure Mike's down there with a
dude,
5-gallon
right?
bucket shoveling shit.
Dude, right? I love Mike, and I like that's what and that's what I wish that show was still on the air, man. Because it's
Ah,
we
you
need it.
people.
We need it. But I want to talk to you. Like, has working on a ranch taught you anything about patience or responsibility or anything else?
Pretty much any life lesson that you wanna learn, you can learn on a ranch, you know?
Yeah,
I mean, and I think there's so many things there. Yeah, the patience one is probably first and foremost. Um, and that's something I think we take a lot of pride here in, and I take a lot of pride personally when somebody is like, "What's one of your strengths?" I'll be like, "Well, neither my dad nor I roller coaster." I mean, we're steady. We try to be as steady as we possibly can. Yeah, there's things that might upset us or we might get emotional about something here every once in a while, but I mean, we never yell at each other. We never cuss at each other. I mean, because if you start doing that in a family operation, it affects everything and everybody around you. The animals can sense it, your team workers can sense it. I mean, so it's not a great thing. I think it's brought about a lot of humility. And
yeah,
and what I mean by that is I was just laughing a couple weeks ago because it was the usually that time of year I drive a semi too, so I'm hauling all of our own cattle out to pasture and whatnot. And I mean I am usually I'm covered in exactly what you were just pitching out of that area in front of your house on most days. And I just was like, I just love to not be covered in something else's excrements someday,
right,
whether it's slobber or milk or shit or something.
right,
But yeah, I think there's so many amazing life lessons. And you have, like I said, you have a purpose. And I think that just kind of gives you a level of contentment too. Like we're always pushing and always striving, but at the same time, at the end of the day, there's a lot of self-satisfaction and gratification in what you do too, because you're doing things on your own and you're kind of have to be like a combination MacGyver and Chuck Norris all in one, usually on a daily basis. And I think that's so cool.
right. I think that that's interesting. You got to be MacGyver and Chuck Norris. That's a great combination, first of all.
Oh,
Uh,
yeah, especially for a female. So,
right.
so, yeah,
You know,
we'll throw somebody else in there too.
right? Can you put a little bit of magic and a little bit of chaos and a little bit of know-how and ingenuity at the same time, you know? I yeah, right? I was fascinated too because I also there's one thing Joe Rogan was talking about once, like a lot of people think that they could fight. This is another thing. Like, first of all, fly a plane, but there's another one. I was like, people think that they could beat a bear in a fight, a grizzly. And right? Like, people don't realize how big grizzly bears are. Like, people just don't know.
Like
And
8 foot tall, standing up. I mean, that's dumb.
right, like, right?
Yeah,
And, like,
no.
I remember going to see, like my school had they had this section of their biology department in my university that had been donated, and it was, like, all of these taxidermied animals, and what was wild is that the guy had a polar bear and a grizzly bear in the collection, and I remember standing next to the grizzly bear going, "Yeah, nah, like, this is a giant, giant animal." But why I'm bringing this up is, like, my uncle did the whole he was a doctor all his life, and his favorite books were, the James Herriot series about this
They
veterinarian,
were amazing.
right?
Yes.
That was the things that he would digest, and he was from the UK, and he's like, "Alright, I'm gonna do this. I am getting cattle." And he got cattle, and it was not a lot, but he got like 20 cattle, and he had got this big bull that was going to be the bull that was the that going to be his whole farm was going to be based on this bull, and he spent a lot of money. First of all, I didn't know that bulls were
Mhm.
that much money, and
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
the second thing was the size of this animal was massive. And I
Mhm.
think that people don't realize how big cattle actually are, you know? It's wild.
Yeah, it is wild, and it's so agriculture usually rates as one of the top, like, it's always in the top 5 of, like, most dangerous jobs, and I
Yep.
don't think people realize that, and there is so many on-farm, on-ranch accidents and injuries. I mean, I've got enough scars to prove it too, and I think that's one of the things is when you think about it, on a day-to-day basis, for the most part, we're handling animals that average anywhere from 100 up to 2,000 pounds.
Yeah.
And we're trying sometimes to make them do things that they don't really want to do, like, or go places they don't really want to go. And so, you're constantly, and especially like this time of the year where we're just finishing up with calving season, and I go out every day and I tag, weigh, and band off of an ATV. And I'll jump off, I'll grab that calf, and you will always have to keep an eye on that cow because you turn
Yeah.
your back, you don't know what can happen. And I think, yeah, people don't realize the dangers involved. There's been some things over the years I go, well, this is probably going to be a really stupid idea, but I don't know what else we're going to do. And somehow we're just still managed to make it through it somehow. So, but yeah, every day you're kind of questioning some of those decisions you make.
My uncle was learned the hard way that bulls are unpredictable and can be quite dangerous. And he was standing next to this fence, like, "Wow, what a beautiful bull!" And the guy that was his ranch, like the leader of the ranch for him, was like, "Dr. Trace, I don't think you should stand there." And he was like, "I'm good." Yeah, not that bull was like next to a gate, and the bull's like, "I don't like this gate, and I don't like you." And it hit the gate with its head, sent him flying 30 feet across the area. I don't know what it was, but he just flew 33 through the air, busted up his shoulder so bad that he had to have 4 surgeries. And he was
Uh,
like, he just didn't realize the amount of power that animal had. And it's interesting too, because it seems that you have to have a degree of respect for the animals at all times and for what you're doing. And I
yeah,
am fascinated by that.
Yeah, you do. And I think that's it. Like, I mean, my animals, they also have a job.
Yeah.
And if they and this and I always I'll tell them, I talk a lot when I'm out in the middle of nowhere by myself, but I will constantly remind them that this is not a democracy. This is a dictatorship. And so I mean, but that's just it. I refuse to handle animals that are misbehaved or have attitude issues. They can go get a job at McDonald's or be part of McDonald's menu. But I think that's one of the things too is you always constantly have to be aware of the safety component to it. I mean, I lost a business partner and a great friend of mine to an ATV accident. We were
Yeah.
just out moving cattle, and she was just probably someplace that I probably myself wouldn't have taken an ATV, and that was it. Couple second decision, and that's somebody's life. And so we have enough interns or young help around too, or that you have to be really conscientious of that fact. But yeah, going off that story, I had a bull. I was loading bulls into a just a 24-foot stock trailer, and I only had 5 of them on there. But I had an older bull that was just kind of a little bit of a jerk, and so I was getting on to shut the interior gate behind him, and you always know something can happen, especially with the gate. So it's kind of like this to the side to protect myself. And he nailed that gate, just nailed it. And there's a box up on the gate where it closes, and that corner of that box came through, went through my glasses, went through my ball cap, and all the way down to my skull, and it flung me out of the trailer. And I remember going to well, first we do everything out here by helicopter if we need
Yeah.
an ambulance usually. So I was telling one of the employees, I'm like, call the chopper. And then I'm like, wait, I'm coherent. I think we can probably get to town. So we got to town. They got me stitched back up. And I was trucking cattle that evening, and I think it's just those things that you just learn to expect. But you always try to avoid them the best you can. But yeah, it's dealing with things that are a little out of your control sometimes. So you just try to be safe and respectful of everything and handle it the best you can.
I love that. Well, I want to ask you one last question. Like when things go wrong, whether you're getting hit in the head with something, or it's weather or markets or something else. How do you keep moving forward? What's it that helps you keep showing up every day?
Well, you don't have a choice. I think
Mm.
that's number 1 is you don't
Yeah.
have a choice, and I mean, well, I should say there's always a choice, and I think people nowadays are so easy to give up when there's challenges,
Right?
or they start changing as a person and they just do this whole victim mentality and I feel sorry for themselves, and if a challenge approaches itself out here, to me, I see it as a challenge. And a challenge means you're going to work your ass off to figure out a way to get through it and be better on the other side. Whether it's a better operator, better person, or just, I mean, anything better in general. I mean, yeah, we've all been through those crap situations. We all have, whether it's bad economics, bad markets, Mother Nature devastating something, which we're in a severe drought right now. And it's like, yeah, okay, it is what it is. So if Mother Nature's hormonal, let's focus on things that are positive. Let's keep working on other aspects of the business that we know are positive and we work around it. And you find ways to make things work. Like you're constantly thinking, like when I go to bed at night, that's one of the reasons I don't have connectivity is because my mind's going all the time.
Right.
If there's a problem, you find a solution. And the solution might not be the easiest one, but there's always a solution.
I love that too, because I think that one of the things is like I have um, a gentleman that I'm doing some video for who's also a former Navy SEAL, and he's just cool as hell. And he's like, "This is one of the things we learned to the teams." He's like, "Don't come with problems, come with solutions." And he's like,
Absolutely.
you have a solutions based mindset, and something I try to teach my daughter. She's, "Daddy, I don't want," and I'm just like, "What can we do to fix it? Where can we make these solutions right now?" And one of the things I'm big on systems. I think that if you have great systems in
Mhm.
place, they will help you get to where you need to be. Do you have like a lot of systems on the farm that are helping you get everything done?
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, we utilize a lot of different, I mean, systems can be defined so many ways. And, whether it's utilizing more cutting edge technology or just even a system where put your tools back where they belong, keep a clean shop,
Right.
something like that. Right. It's so simple. It's so simple, and like something so simple, like we have brooms and like those little hand brooms in our tractor. So when you're done with the tractor, sweep it out because those things, one small thing, water falls into something else.
Yeah.
So let me give you an example. If you have a broom in your tractor and you're done using it for the day and you sweep it out, most likely you're going to take better care of that piece of equipment. I mean, that's a six-figure plus usually piece of equipment. So
Yeah.
you're probably going to service it more regularly. You might clean your windows more often. You might clean your dash and get the dust off. You're going to take better care of it. And I think just simple things like that can make such a big difference. But then on the other aspect too, because of the fact we're so far from anything, I mean, chat, there's so much controversy right now on AI, and since I'm a rancher, I have to make sure and clarify it's not the artificial insemination type. But you know, chat helps me out on a daily basis. I cannot tell you how many tractors or pieces of equipment or something I fixed because I can look it up on chat now instead of having to have a mechanic come out 3 separate times. Because usually what happens, they'll come out once to look at the problem, they'll come out second time because they bring the wrong part, and they'll come out the third time because they'll actually bring the right part and fix it. But all those times are charging me mileage. So, I
Mm.
mean, it's just taking advantage of some of those things that are so great. We have a company now that we've been utilizing for a little over a year called RanchBot. It's an Australian-based company. They're over in the U.S. now, but they have a satellite monitoring system that we put on our water tanks for our cattle. So I can look at my phone. If I'm like right now, I can glance on my phone, see where my water tank levels are for my cow herd, and it's just
Mm.
something so simple like that that makes a big, big difference.
That's amazing. And it's amazing too because the tools are there and we can I love instituting things like that that are make it easier to do a great job because at the end of the day, like you said in the beginning, you want to make sure that you're able to help feed the world. And that's a powerful thing to be able to do that well. And whatever you're doing, I love the idea of having that the basics that are when I talk to people in the wine industry, one of the things that they say, Where do you start off as a winemaker?" And they're like, "Cleaning." Like, cleaning,
It's the
and
truth.
they said, as a winemaker, like, when you come in to make wine, You don't understand. You're scrubbing barrels. You are scrubbing tanks. You are scrubbing the floor. You are scrubbing everything because, for wine, if you have one little thing off, that batch could go bad, and it's wild that, you have that level and it's people don't know. And I want to ask you this because after everything you've learned, seen, and experienced, what kind of legacy do you hope to leave behind from what you're doing?
Y my goal has always been to leave the place better than when I came around, and I think that that's a pretty solid goal. Um, you know, I have a younger brother who's 4.5 years younger. Him and his wife and family live 6 hours away in the eastern part of the state, and I've said, okay, I've told him time and time again, I said, I'll get it through this generation. You've got the sixth generation there living in your house. That's gonna be their responsibility then the next generation. So I'll do the best I can to get it at a sustainable level for them. But I think more importantly, I think the biggest legacy that I want to leave on the industry is just really that messaging mentality that we're all in this together. We all can work together. We can be very positive and open minded and share around with people from around the world all the great things that we're doing in our industry. And at the end of the day, just be that trusted resource and really be conscientious of everything that we're doing here in terms of preserving our little piece of heaven, whether it be trying to continue to improve our genetics or working on bettering our environment each and every day. But I think those are all so important. They're very important pieces, and they're also very self-gratifying in a way. So I hope I've got years to continue to do this. Like, we never know, when our time will come up. But yeah, I'm just so grateful that I'm able to do what I do and have those opportunities to share it.
That's awesome. Well, I want to ask you about sharing it. Where can people go to learn more about you and what you do?
Yeah, so the easiest thing that they can do is head to our website, which is flyingdiamondbeef.com. And there you can kind of see about the ranch. We do a direct to consumer beef business where we do ship product all over the US. They can also look at booking our guest facility. I think is going to be online here within the next week. They can look at some of those options. We also do work with a company called Harvest Host, where it's kind of like an Airbnb for our RVers that are traveling. There's that would kind of give the basis of the stories, and then from the website they can continue on there to follow us on our socials and everything, and kind of see what we're doing on a day-to-day basis here on the ranch.